this evening, and welcome to a Ohio State versus Penn State preview edition of the OHIO podcast. I'm your host, the Podfather, aka Eric Boggs. I'm with the Wild Man, Christopher Wilds. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are things?
Things are things are well. We got the number one team in the country, 7-0, taking on 3-4 Penn State on a four-game skid. Their head coach James Franklin is no longer with the program. Um, that changes a lot in this game. No one expected 3-4 Penn State to be coming into the shoe. Let's just start there, right? Like this is kind of a surprise for everybody. We all kind of predicted that at some point James Franklin would James Franklin himself. We all knew that. But we didn't see them going on a four-game losing streak in the Big Ten, brother. No one saw that coming.
No, I think I had him picked for three losses at the beginning of the season, but that was for the whole season. Uh, you know, and I think with the schedule they played, that it was fair, considering Ohio State and Oregon were on that schedule. I believe, if I remember right, I also had them losing to Iowa, which actually did come into fruition as well. But yeah, as far as a full stretch of four losses, basically just after the halfway point of the season. And Eric, it doesn't get any easier for them. They got Ohio State this week and then Indiana next week.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
a team that's fighting for their not their playoff life anymore. They're fighting for their bowl life at this point.
yeah. This is a skid that they need to have stopped. This all of a sudden this game becomes like their Super Bowl, and um, I don't know if that makes us feel better or worse. I have mixed feelings about it because I mean I in my mind I know like that's still Penn State. I know they're still talented. But man, they don't play like it. They haven't
No.
not looked like it. And it just makes you wonder, is this thing going to get ugly in the shoe on Saturday? So let's just dive into the numbers here. Let's take a look at that first for everybody. This Saturday, 12 p.m. kick on Fox. I wonder if Fox is regretting getting this thing. Like, do you think maybe they're like, yeah, maybe we should have waited on this one. This is
Well, I mean, it's still a huge fan base,
sure.
and it's still Ohio State on the other side for Penn State. So, I mean, Ohio State is Fox's money machine. They are the cash cow.
I mean, it's still going to
Um,
do a good number, but
yes,
it's not going to do the number that they were hoping for. That's for
no,
sure.
no. No, and I don't think they're going to regret having this game per se. Um, but I'll tell you what, I think you'll be hesitant to see Fox jump on Penn State very much next year.
Well, I guess it really depends on who their new head coach is going to be. In all honesty, there might be some buzz, especially early on, depending on who it is. But yeah, that's a good point, Chris. All right, let's take a look at this thing by the numbers, shall we? So Ohio State versus Penn State. The Buckeyes lead the all-time series now, 25-14. But this thing was 15-14 not that long ago. And then Ohio State has ran off 8 wins in a row against the Nittany Lions. Last loss to Penn State was in 2016, that 21-24 loss. Last meeting in Columbus was 2 years ago. Ohio State won 20-12. Last meeting in State College was last season. That was a 20-13 win. Largest margin of victory for the Buckeyes came in 2013. That was a 63-14 spanking. Largest margin of defeat, well, that was pretty bad itself. 1994, 14-63 the other way. Ohio State's longest win streak over Penn State, well, that's the current one we're on, an 8-gamer, started in 2017, and it continues today. Hopefully that'll be moving to 9. Penn State's longest win streak over the Buckeyes, well, that was 4, started in 1912 and continued on into 1964. Joe Paul over Woody Hayes in 1964. Ryan Day's record against Penn State, 6-0, and Terry Smith, that's right, that's the interim head coach. He comes into this game, he's 0-0 as a head coach against Ohio State. Looking at the last 10 games, I mentioned Ohio State's on an 8-game winning streak. Last loss came in 2016, that 21-24 loss in State College. And other than that, there's a lot of close games in there. Look at 2017, 39-38, 2018, 27-26. You look at the last two, 20 to 12, 20 to 13. Some pretty close games in there against Penn State, but this one feels like maybe we might be looking at something a little bit different. Chris, when we take a look at those numbers, what are your thoughts about the numbers and about the current streak Ohio State is on against the Nittany Lions?
Uh, there's no other way to say it, Eric. I mean, Ohio State owns Penn State. Um, going back to their entrance into the Big Ten, for the most part, Ohio State has owned Penn State with a few exceptions. Uh, and I don't think it's going to be any different this Saturday. But what I will say is I don't think it's going to be as close as what you've seen in the past. This is not going to be one where JT Barrett's going to have to come out and come from behind to lead us to victory. Um, this is a Penn State team that's reeling right now. And does it make them more dangerous because for them there really is no tomorrow? Maybe. But I'm seeing a team that's playing without passion right now. Um, so if Terry Smith can re-energize this team, they have the talent to make it a game. I mean, we've seen that over the course of the last 10 years. For the most part, the games have been fairly close. But, I don't see it happening. I just don't, especially without Drew Aller, I just don't see this thing happening.
You know, yeah, this is the second start for Gruckmeyer, the local Olentangy product here in Central Ohio, who went to Penn State. He's a true freshman. Second start, and he's coming back to Columbus, playing against the team he more likely grew up cheering for. Let's be honest. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how he plays in this game. To be
That's
quite honest.
that is a lot of fuel for him, but at the same time, as much fuel as it gives him, it also adds a whole lot of pressure. You're at home, you're in front of your family, your friends, like you said, the team you most likely grew up worshiping. Um, that's a lot of pressure on a kid who's just a true freshman. It's going to be difficult for this young man to come out and play with his mindset the way it's going to be already, and then to have to face Matt Patricia's defense, which has confused far more experienced quarterbacks than what this young man is. Um, I don't think it bodes well for him. I feel somewhat bad for the kid, but at the same time, I don't.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at your tail of the tape. This is going to be very interesting, Chris, as we break this down. I can't wait to hear how you view these stats.
Well, I'll tell you what. The stats are actually a lot closer in some areas than people might think. And surprisingly, you look at some of them where Penn State actually has a slight advantage, and it makes you scratch your head a little bit. Start out at points per game, where Ohio State has the lead at 36.43 versus 34 points per game for Penn State. Um, However, a lot of those are fueled by early season numbers.
Yeah, against three,
Three questionable
cupcakes.
opponents. I think their first three games, the highest defensive ranking was like, I want to say 121 or 111, something like that. It was they were bad defenses. Rushing yards per game, Penn State does hold a slight edge at 169.6 to Ohio State's 151.7. Um, Ohio State, this is something I'm sure they've worked on, but at the same time, uh, this is something where I think Ohio State has actually played teams, if you look overall, that do have better rushing defenses than what Penn State has seen so far. Passing game, Ohio State, huge advantage here. Huge. Almost 100 yards more per game passing. 279.7 to 185.4. Uh, Total yards per game, Ohio State 431.4 to 355 for Penn State. Penn State's surprisingly good in the red zone at 41.4%.
That's third down
Although,
percentage.
what's that? Our third down percentage, yes. Um, and then Ohio State, of course, 52.7%, which is an outstanding number anytime you can keep that number over 50%. Red zone percentage, Penn State holds a slight edge. Let me tell you why, guys. It's this simple. When you don't get into the red zone very often, you don't have missed opportunities. I think that's what it comes down to, why their percentage is so good. A lot of those numbers I think were achieved early on, and again with Drew Aller at the helm. Defensively, Ohio State 5.86 points per game allowed. That is absurd, Eric. That is sick. 19.94 points per game given up by Penn State. 85 yards is all Ohio State's allowing on the ground. 85.6 yards. Penn State allowing 158.7. Passing yards per game. Ohio State only giving up 131. Passing yards per game allowed by Penn State 145. And that number sounds pretty good. But then you look at how many yards rushing they're giving up, and it makes you think, well, maybe you don't have to throw the ball too often. Total yards allowed per game. Again, nearly 100 yards more for Penn State being allowed per game. 303.7 versus 216.9 for Ohio State. On third down, Ohio State is only allowing 21.1% conversion rate on third down. That's very good. Penn State actually nearly double that at 40.2%. And Penn State does have a slight edge in the turnover battle at 1.3 per game to Ohio State's 1.0 per game. So if you look at the numbers overall, I think some people may look at some things like the red zone percentage, their rushing yards per game, how many points per game they're scoring, and think that this is an offense that could challenge Ohio State. That was an offense that had Drew Aller at the helm, not a true freshman quarterback, and that was playing against very soft defenses. That's where those numbers came from. If you look what they've done recently versus better defenses, the numbers are not nearly there. This is an Ohio State team that I look for, Eric, to be completely dominant on both sides of the ball. I don't think they'll shut Penn State out because I do think that Penn State run game is really, really good. But this is not a Penn State team that's going to put up a lot of points. I would not be surprised at all if they kept Penn State to single digits.
I think that's borderline. What's going to be very interesting to me is this Ohio State offense against this Penn State defense, right? You got the Ryan Day versus Jim Knowles, narrative here, which is going to be incredibly interesting. And if Ohio State can get to where they're moving the ball with ease against this defense, which the last few opponents have been able to do that, then I mean, look at UCLA. Like UCLA crushed them, but we always knew that Jim Knowles' defense has a major flaw, and that is a running quarterback. And
Yes.
Julian Saint hasn't necessarily done that yet this year. I would like to see him take off a couple times and extend plays and use his legs to hurt Jim Knowles' defense. But Jim's going to try to disguise his blitzes. He's going to try to fool Julian Saint. If Julian can just stay comfortable in the pocket, take what that defense gives him, they're going to move the ball easily, I think, against them. And then when he has the opportunity to take his shots deep, he does so. If we capitalize on those, this thing could get away from Penn State really quickly, and we could be looking at something ugly.
Well, I'll tell you, Eric, and just you talked about the defense. Through the first three games, Penn State allowed 17 points. Do you know how many points they've allowed over the last four games?
It's a lot.
106 points.
Yeah. Well, I saw a stat the other day that this Ohio State defense through 7 games has given up less points than Penn State gave up against UCLA.
Yes, that's a fact.
So,
I'm sorry, that's incorrect. That's how many points Penn State has scored in the last 4 games is 106, um, which is actually
it's
about equal to what they scored in the first three. Um,
mm,
no, they've actually allowed. I'm sorry. It's going to be 40, 72, 94, 99, 119 points allowed.
they're averaging 26.5 points a game in the last in their losses. And a lot of that came against UCLA in a high scoring game. So, and a double overtime game against Oregon. Um, it's one thing to look at this and say, throw the records out, throw all the stats out. This is Ohio State, Penn State. This is their Super Bowl. This is their rivalry. But there's so much surrounding this team that this interview we're about to play for you is incredibly interesting. I asked some pretty difficult questions, and shout out to Andrew from the Nittany Blues podcast. He's very candid and very open in his answers. You're all going to enjoy this interview. And then Chris and I will be back to give you our final thoughts and our prediction of the game. And we are now joined by Andrew from the Nittany Blues podcast, our sister podcast over at the College Huddle. Welcome back to the OHL podcast, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Always a pleasure to be here.
All right, man. Let's just crack open that difficult egg here that we're going to talk about. This wasn't, I think, the season any of you expected. It wasn't the season expected by the national pundits. I will say that. But I want to hear from your perspective. How did we get here? And kind of just break it all down for us from expectations at the beginning of the season to the losing streak and James being fired.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of a windy road. It's a complex story for sure, but I think you teed it up pretty well. Obviously, there were a lot of expectations coming into this season, both externally and internally. James Franklin spoke candidly at Big Ten Media Days about this being his best program from top to bottom in terms of his coaching staff, the players, and everything in between. On paper, you have one of, if not the best coordinator combos in the country, and Andy Kotelnicki and Jim Knowles. And so you come into this season thinking you have a very legitimate shot, like the best shot that you have of competing for a national championship really since 2017. And you look at all the pieces that came back, all these seniors, all these upperclassmen that seem to fall a little bit into the footsteps of like Michigan and Ohio State when they won their national titles. And so the stage was kind of set. And then we went through the non-conference, and Penn State was winning comfortably, but there were still some questions to be answered. And like the hope was just kind of like, okay, everything's just going to kind of click the way that we expect them to here at some point. And then obviously the game against Oregon happened. It, double overtime, heartbreaker. And then things just fell off a cliff from there.
Yeah.
You go to UCLA. Go ahead.
Can I put a little carrot in right here?
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to ask this because this is kind of the prevailing, uh, I guess you could say, talking point around here was that James put so much emphasis in that game with Oregon based off of what happened last year at the Big Ten championship game, and the fact that they lost that thing and the way they lost it, it just spiraled out of control from there. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say it is. And I think when you look at the way that he portrayed himself and the way that the team portrayed itself after that Oregon loss, you could kind of see that just being a little bit of the breaking point, right? Because so often in past years, James Franklin has hyper emphasized about not letting one loss turn into two. He said that multiple times after losses to like Ohio State and to Michigan in past years. And for the most part, they were able to achieve that, right? They were able to kind of right the ship a little bit, maybe a little bit of a sluggish game after that, but they were able to get back in the win column. In this case, though, it kind of just seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back. Like the team looked sluggish. They look They looked uninspired. They looked unprepared. And you cut to James Franklin on the sideline. He just looks almost like disengaged. Like his body language to me wasn't great, and I think it was just a big example of attitude reflecting leadership in that case.
Mm,
And obviously, things had taken a turn with the. I guess I shouldn't say taken a turn, but the relationship between Franklin and the fan base certainly went downhill very fast as well. And so when you
yeah.
start talking about stacking historic losses the way that they did, um, juxtaposed against the expectations for the season coming in, that's ultimately what led us to where we are now.
Yeah. I remember talking to you, I want to say it was the summer of 2024. And I had gotten back from a vacation in Pennsylvania and had asked you, had apathy begin to set in with the fan base. And you said maybe, I think your reply was, no, I just think they're cautious. Is kind of what your reply was. And I remember that. And then I think that cautiousness kind of left with those higher expectations. Um, that fan base after the Northwestern loss, I remember watching it and going, I cannot think I just don't think he's going to be able to coach again. There's no way. The way he was shielding his family as they're walking back to the locker room was like, oh my, this is bad. Like this is really really bad. So let's move forward now. He's fired. He's removed. Congrats on the ability to raise the money for the buyout, man. That shows Penn State's strong. Okay, like if there's any silver lining here, it's like oh financially that's a good program to be able to do that. In comes the interim Terry Smith. Who is this guy?
Yeah, so the elevator pitch around Terry Smith. He's a former Penn State wide receiver. Played from '88 to '91, so he played during the Paterno days. He has been with James Franklin for a long, long time, going all the way back to his time at Vanderbilt. He's actually the only coach who still remained on James Franklin's Penn State staff from when he came over to Vanderbilt. So
Mm,
he's super familiar with the place. I mean, it's obviously where he played. His dad went there. Members of his family have gone there. His son and his daughter. So he's kind of what you would call like a true Penn Stater. Like kind of a lifelong guy. And so he's been the cornerbacks coach here for the entirety of his time at Penn State. And so now coming in, I think the reason that he was tabbed to be the interim head coach was because he had an existing relationship with everybody on the team, as opposed to like Andy Kotelnicki and Knowles, who have, this is their second and first year in the program, respectively. And I think he's pretty highly respected within the program. Very well liked among the current players as well as former players. I've even seen a couple players who left Penn State to go play at other programs speak very highly of him. And so I think they kind of saw him as like the right guy to kind of lead them as best as they possibly could be, given the weird circumstances around the team right now. And so now, they're just trying to like make as much of the season as possible, understanding that like they're in the thick of it now, like that they're not out of the woods yet as far as like what the season could or couldn't be. Obviously, they had a slew of decommitments happen recently, which is all pretty natural in the lifespan of a big program that fired its coach. So he's dealing with a pretty special circumstance right now.
yeah, he is. Um, One of the special circumstances he's dealing with is your defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles. I've been reading mixed reviews. What does the Penn State fan base think of this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the opinions aren't great. Through the first 3 games of the season against what was admittedly a pretty easy non-conference schedule, the defense looked good. Like we were pretty optimistic. They didn't let up a touchdown. Did the first team defense, and for the most part, through most of the Oregon game, they looked good. They held strong. It wasn't until really overtime that things kind of just started to crack, and then once those floodgates were opened, you saw what became of that in the game against UCLA and eventually Northwestern, and now continuing into their most recent game against Iowa, where they can't get a stop when they need to. And so I think the opinions are that this it was kind of a mistake to bring him in. Um, we've even heard members of the coaching staff say that yes, like this system is rather complicated. Me personally, I think that this still kind of like goes into Franklin's ledger as like, okay, like if you knew that this guy was bringing in a system that was overly complex, why did you not try to like mitigate the negative effects of something like that to maybe simplify the system, work with the players that you have? I think that a conversation could be had around that. And I think it's just not a great look that you lose one of your, admittedly, you're like one of your top players, if not your top player on defense, and Tony Rojas, and the whole system falls apart. So, it's a weird spot to be in as a Penn State fan because defense has been, one of the more consistent calling cards for the team. In a lot of games, not counting like the Ohio States and the Michigans, when the team needed a stop, more often than not, they were getting that stop. And now the script has been flipped in that regard.
Yeah, so Jim Knowles famously talks about that he'll need 3 years to establish his defense, and I think that has been. I mean, we experienced it here, but the thing was in when he took over in 2022, the 2021 defense was so bad we saw improvement. So even though the 2022 defense was, nowhere near as good as it got to it in 2024, 2021 was so bad that we were like, yeah, this is good. Um, you guys had a great defense last year. Like that wasn't the problem. And so, you just needed somebody to come in and basically say, do the same thing. And it doesn't seem like that's his MO at all. Um, so let's talk about this game a little bit. Um, where do you think the players are at in their mind, and where do you think the fans are at in their mind when it comes to coming to the shoe, taking on the number one team in the country?
Yeah, I'll answer the second one first. I mean, I don't speak for everybody, but my expectations for this game, as far as Penn State's chances, are pretty low. Uh, playing at playing Ohio State at Ohio State has been, Penn State's Achilles heel ever since they joined the Big Ten. I think they've only beaten uh, the Buckeyes in the shoe twice since joining the Big Ten, and so that just speaks to how difficult it is to do that when you have a normal quote unquote functioning team rather than a team that's faced with the challenges that Penn State has right now. You have an offense that has been largely ineffective, that lost its longtime starting quarterback. You don't know what the product is on offense that you're going to get. There's been reports that Penn State. Well, I shouldn't say there's been reports that they've been experimenting, but they've been closing off practices to the media to maybe cook something up as far as offense, something that they could try to like help out their star players or get guys new opportunities to be productive and be successful. And then on defense, I mean, like we've seen what that defense is incapable of doing over the past 3 or 4 games. And so when you put that against Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith and what that Ohio State offense is capable of, it the outlook is pretty grim. As far as like where the players are at, I would like to think that they're in a decent headspace. I think, like I said before, Terry Smith is actually a pretty good guy to kind of rally the troops here a little bit, and I think he's saying a lot of the right things in his press conferences and then with his media availability to kind of say like success is only obtained by production on the field. We still have opportunity here, and whether you're thinking of going to the NFL or you're going to a different program, like you still need to put good things on tape. And so this is an opportunity to test yourself against the best of the best. And so I think for the most part, like they're in as good of a headspace as they could be. That being said, I think it's extremely easy and understandable if guys are mentally checked out because they lost their starting head coach, or excuse me, their former head coach, and I mean this is a guy that they committed to play for a very important part of their football career, right? And so I think that's difficult in of itself to deal with. You have what is essentially like a lost season, which just falls into the category of like one of the worst meltdowns and one of the worst results that you can think of when you consider the preseason expectations. So I think all in all, the arrow is pointed down in that regard. I want to say that like the guys should come out pretty energized for this one. Like the games against Ohio State, I would say the effort is never really in question. Like they want to win these games every year. Like they come out and they look charged up more so than they would be against like a Nevada. I just think that Ohio State right now is like the favorite against any team coming into the shoe, much less a team that's kind of configured the way that Penn State is right now.
Making his second start at quarterback, you mentioned Drew Aller going down with the injury. By the way, do you think he would apply for a gray shirt and be approved for that possibly?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility because when you look at where he was as a draft prospect coming into the season versus where he is now, I mean it's a pretty stark difference. I think that there's a decent chance that maybe he will apply for one. Maybe see like where the chips fall, like with a new head coach, like new system, stuff like that. As far as whether he'll be approved, I'm not, I don't know historically like what the
It's only
precedent is.
one game more than a red shirt on the
Yeah.
season when he got injured. I think what was it, two quarters or something? So it's like the way that the NCAA's been a little bit more lenient on things, I gotta feel like if he applied that he'd get it.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, because that was my main question was like, okay, like there's that 30% threshold or whatever it is. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, I think that I personally, I wouldn't hate having him back. I mean, like the outlook for quarterback right now, barring like a new coach coming in and getting one out of the transfer portal right now, I would say is like the outlook isn't all that great. I mean, we still probably have not like we haven't seen all of what Ethan Grunkemeyer can do, but is he the quarterback for Penn State's future, especially with a schedule next year that is rather favorable for Penn State? I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see.
Speaking of Grickmeyer, he played high school literally right down the road from me, so I know him well. Got to watch him with my own two eyes. Very talented young man, but he is a true freshman. I
Yeah,
kind of feel like going into this game a little bit, Andrew. Though I mean, he grew up in the shadow of the shoe, man. Grew up probably being an Ohio State fan, more than likely. So this is going to be a big opportunity for him. Is there any storylines around that at all?
Yeah, none that I really know. I mean, the biggest storyline of that over the past, like 5, 6 years was Sean Clifford, right? Like he made it very well known that he wanted to beat Ohio State as an Ohio guy. Drew was never like really that outspoken, even though he was from Ohio. And so I don't know. I'm sure that there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder aspect to this kind of game. And I mean, it's funny we're talking about like the lineage of quarterbacks. I mean, the ties between Ethan Grunkemeyer and Drew Aller are kind of funny, like when you flesh it all out, because both from Ohio, they both train under the same QB specialist, who has had, I guess, a relationship with James Franklin and Penn State, obviously. So it's kind of funny how that pipeline was indirectly established. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it definitely becomes a different animal when you're playing like your home state's flagship program. So maybe there will be something to that. But again, I mean, when you put him though with the relative lack of production from the wide receivers, I don't know how much he'll be able to do on his own, but time will tell.
How would you describe his game?
Yeah, I mean, from the very limited sample size that we saw, I mean, I think that he's willing to attack, like he's willing to like press the ball downfield. And I think the coaching staff actually gave him a decent amount of opportunities to do that against Iowa, maybe more so than they were willing to let Drew in a lot of cases, which is kind of interesting in of itself after Franklin left that they kind of tweaked that part of the philosophy a little bit. But yeah, I think he still has some like young guy tendencies in there, like running to the empty side of the field and in a scramble drill and stuff like that. So I think he's got a talented arm. I think that over time his accuracy I expect should improve, just as he kind of has a feel for like the upper echelon of the college game and understanding like the timing and the speed of like just how things happen. Wouldn't really consider him to be like a dual threat guy, but I mean Penn State's not shy about running some of its quarterbacks, and so I was fine with that part of his game as well. But I think like probably like more of a pocket passer is how I would describe him.
Okay. Um, all right, man. So let's talk about the future here. I couldn't bring you on and not ask you what do you think is going to happen as far as a head coach. Now, there's a tie here. Everybody's wanting to talk about, at least from Penn State, about putting Brian Hartline on a small list of someone to talk to. I see it all over the internet. Um, I know that Joe Brady's been mentioned. He's the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. He was the OC at LSU when the Tigers won a national championship with Coach O. Um, I also, there's Matt Rule. Although Penn State fans say no, thank you. Not so polite as I just said to Matt Rule. I've seen and heard. Those are some of the names I've seen. I know Eli Drinkowitz has been thrown out there as a possibility. I said Kenny Dillingham would be a home run if they could pull him away from Arizona State for Penn State. What say you? What are you hearing? And who would you like in a perfect world?
Yeah, I would say that, this isn't gonna be a very popular answer, but I think based on the factors, that are playing out here, I think Matt Rule is probably the most likely outcome of this coaching
You are
search.
in rare breed in your fan base, buddy.
Well, that he wouldn't be my top choice. That's what I'll say here. That's what I
Okay.
think is going to happen. Because the way that these chips are falling right now, or the way that these dominoes are falling, as far as like head coaching vacancies are concerned, and how these are like being leveraged for like greater contracts. For I mean, look at like what Kurt Signetti signed like less than a week after the Penn State job opened. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like that was a coincidence. And so when you look at like these openings that are coming, like LSU and Florida and stuff like that, like Penn State is going to be in a bit of a dogfight if they want to really land like a big splash hire. And I think that pool is going to shrink, like as some of these guys maybe sign like contract extensions, because I mean, quite frankly, my top choices, like once this job became open, like Signetti was the number one home run hire. Like if you could possibly make that happen. And some other guys that I felt were worth just talking about, but very low likelihood of happening, were guys like Mike Elko, who has Northeast. He's like from the Northeast, from like the New Jersey area, so he's familiar like with that recruiting background. And I think that Marcus Freeman was another name that was talked about, which I thought was an extremely small chance of happening. But then there's there's a smaller, or there's another group of guys who maybe aren't like on the national stage like the superstars, but I think would be a very good option. You talked about Kenny Dillingham. I think Matt Campbell from ISU would also be a suitable option here. I know some people who actually would like to give Manny Diaz a look, former defensive coordinator from Penn State, former head coach from Miami, now head coach at Duke. Um, and and obviously, like we said, Matt Rule is out there as well. There was one other that I'm forgetting right now, but then you mentioned like Joe Brady, and obviously involved heavily in the passing game coordination for LSU. Actually, also was a graduate assistant at Penn State with Joe Moorhead when he had what would be considered like the best offense that Penn State's had under James Franklin. So the ties are there as well. Brian Hartline, as you mentioned, I've seen Willie Stein's named mention, OC out of Oregon. So I think that there's like two trains of thought that I've seen from fans, where it's like a lot of people are saying like you want the head coach, you want the guy who's kind of like been in that situation before, kind of understands like the nuances that come with the job. But then there's another group of people who are saying like, look at how much success is coming from this like new wave of head coaches who were previously coordinators at like very high level programs, and see what they've done since. I mean, like Dan Lanning is a perfect example of that, right? As well as Marcus Freeman. So like I said, my two guys, or the top guys that I would have liked to get, is Signetti. If in the next rung down, I would like to maybe give and Eli Drinkwitz. That's the name I was forgetting. Like Eli Drinkwitz, another name thrown in there. I'd like to give Manny Diaz, Eli Drinkwitz, Dillingham, and Campbell a look. But I think the most likely outcome, just to bring this all full circle, like I said, is going to be Matt Rule.
If Matt Rule is hired, do you almost feel like we just got James Franklin 2.0, but he happens to be one of us? Is that kind of what?
There's a little bit of that, yeah. I mean, it's yeah, his big game record, like very, very similar to Franklin's. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of nuance there with the fact that he was, head coach at Temple and Baylor when they lost some of those games. So the the context of losing those games at those programs isn't quite the same as Penn State when you consider like the amount of talent that they've been able to bring in recruiting wise over the past decade plus. And so, yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of that feeling because it's like when Pat Kraft came into his press conference after James Franklin was let go, a lot of it was like, okay, like kind of the ultimate message of it was we want to take this program like to the next level. Like we want to achieve that thing that just escaped James Franklin. And I think the large sentiment of it is that Matt Rule, as far as like what we see from him right now, probably isn't that guy. And maybe he comes in and shocks everyone. But I think there's some like more surefire options out there than him right now, as far as like the head coaching, current head coaches are concerned.
Fair enough. Andrew, tell everybody where they can find the Nittany Blues podcast and how they can follow you.
Yeah, so you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We have our own website, nitnyblues.com. You can listen to all of our previous episodes there as well. We're on all forms of social media at Nittany Blues and Nittany Blues Podcast. And of course, we are part of the College Huddle at thecollegehuddle.com.
Nailed it. All right, Andrew, appreciate you joining us. Thank you for answering those questions and giving us this time, my friend. Enjoy the game this Saturday.
Yep, you as well. Hope it's a closer one than a lot of people think. So just hoping for a good game.
There you go, everybody. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Eric.
And thank you, Andrew, from the Nittany Blues podcast for joining us for that interview. Shout out to him. If you're a Penn State fan, by all means, go check out the website, the nitnyblues.com podcast. It is fantastic. They do such great work over there, and I really trust their opinion, and they're not going to blow smoke up your rear end. The fact that he thinks that they're going to end up landing on Matt Rule as the coach, whoo,
That's not
my
going to make the fan
goodness.
base happy at all, Eric.
No, it's not. My goodness. All right. As you heard, um, there's not a lot of hope in Penn State land. Happy Valley's not very happy, and the fan base is looking at this game like this could get ugly. They've lost a lot of hope in this team. The Jim Knowles storyline here is what's interesting for fans. But Chris, do you really think that the coaches and players really care about this as much as we do?
No, no, this is just this is a game. Uh, it's a game just like any other for these guys, especially for the Ohio State guys. And I'll tell you why. And this started. I truly believe this started with Tennessee last year when the switch kind of flipped. Ohio State seemed to treat games now more like business transactions. They are methodical, they're deliberate, they are focused, they are in there with an express purpose. And while they are passionate about the game, I think the silliness of feelings towards Jim Knowles or feelings towards this, that's out the window at this point. I don't think they don't like Jim Knowles. Hell, Penn State guys don't like Jim Knowles.
That's a true statement.
But you know what? It doesn't matter because they've got a job to do, and they're going to do their job. And that's what Ohio State's all about right now is doing the job. So I don't think it even impacts it even slightly.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Sometimes you see when a head coach gets fired, an interim coach bump. We didn't see it in their first game; they still lost. Are you concerned at all about a let's rally around the interim here? He's a former Nittany Lion. He played for Joe Paterno. He's been with James Franklin since he was hired at Penn State, so he's been there a really long time. Do you are you afraid at all? Maybe there might be that kind of motivation here.
Not so much because I think the players know as well as anybody that Terry Smith is probably not the answer at Penn State. This is not the guy who's going to be there next year. Um, I'm going to tell you right now, Eric. I think you've probably got guys pending who is hired who are already starting to check out. Guys who are thinking about that portal window. Um, and to me, I feel like I understand where you're coming from with that concern. We saw it with UCLA. They went on that little 3 game run, 4 game run where after taking out Penn State, they were successful for a couple weeks under the new coach. But no, again, I said at the beginning, I feel like this is a team that is not playing with heart right now. Um, I don't think that, and not to call them out or challenge them or give them, billboard material, so to speak. I just don't feel like Penn State is really in it to win it right now. These kids, I think, are reeling. I don't think they know what to think. And like I said, I think you've already got some kids who are packing their bags and looking for the portal.
I mean, that's definitely true in the recruiting class. You've had a lot of recruits, decommit and start to open up their recruitment again. Um, and I think that could be expected. The LSU is going to experience that now. Florida, although Florida has done a pretty good job maintaining their recruiting class up to this point, that typically happens. As far as this game is concerned, um, typically we're confident as Ohio State fans because James Franklin's inability to beat Ohio State is well documented.
Fair.
But we usually keep the score close because they're close games. James Franklin's no longer here. Penn State is reeling. I've given you the opportunity to say, hey, here's a couple reasons why it might be close. You've poo-pooed them, Chris. What's your score prediction?
Uh, you know, it's funny because if this was the Ohio State that we'd seen in past years, I would have probably said 60-7. But Ohio State now runs the slowest offense in college football. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Well, they have won the time of possession, I think, in almost every single game.
Yeah. They would play on the pace of one play every 31 and a half seconds, whereas your faster teams do it about one every 21 seconds. So they run considerably slower offense, but that's what their design is now. This is the new Ryan Day. This is the new offense. I still believe the 7 holds true. I think that Penn State does get 7 points. But I'm going to go with Ohio State 38-7.
Okay. I am a little closer than you. I've got 31-13. Um, I I asked AI how many points we were going to score, and it said 43. So I'm like, I would take that. If we scored 43 points, it's a bad day for Penn State. It's a real bad day for
It's a
Penn
bad
State.
day for Jim Knowles.
We both have them in the 30s, which I think is interesting. Ohio State hasn't scored 30 points against Penn State since 2022 when they won 44-31 in a really high scoring game. 2021 they scored 33, 2020 they scored 38. That was a Penn State team that lost 5 in a row during the COVID year. And then it was 2017 when they scored 39. So yeah, they can do it. They haven't done it in the last couple years, but they can do it. I feel like 31-13 feels right. You've got 38-7. What do you all think? What is your score prediction? Put it down in the comment section below. We will be back tomorrow for a Buckeye Ladies show at 8 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you check that out, everybody. And of course, make sure you head on over to our Patreon channel. Sign up. Be a member over at Patreon. God bless you, Chris. So you can enjoy the game watches with us. Watch the game with us over at Patreon. Only $5 to do that. There is a free version. You get one message board with the free version, but it's well worth the $5. And if you've got 20 to spare per month, and you want to bless us and you want to help keep this channel going, we would send you a membership hat with our logo on as our way of saying
And,
thank you for going the extra mile.
and we're going to have a drawing coming up here in a few days as well.
Yes, that's right. Friday is the end of the month, which means it is a drawing. I'm gonna I'm gonna go ahead and dive into my bag of goodies and pull out a really nice autograph for somebody to win. So if you're on the $20, you sign up for $20 a month, you're in a chance for the drawing. So we'll do a live drawing on our Patreon channel Friday night as well. So that's the plan, everybody. Make sure you're hanging around. We have videos every day for you in the morning. We have lives in the evening. 5 days a week. It's a great place to be. We appreciate all of you. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Just double check. That would be nice of you to do so. And of course, leave us a comment below. Till next time, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH in Carmen, Ohio. With all your heart, you all know what to do. OH.
I hope.
Go Bucks.